All right, as far as tools go, for this project, you need a T20 Torx, a couple of various size flathead screwdrivers. Those are to get in and release connectors, 10mm socket. I have a magnet. It's not absolutely necessary, but it is really nice to be able to grab screws out of tight places. And then plastic removal tools so you don't scratch your trim as you're taking everything out. And if you're anything like me, you'll probably forget all of what I just told you. So during the video, I'll also be referring back to each of these tools as I use them. All right, so today we're going to be removing the center console armrest on this 2016 5 Series BMW. This process will work the same for 2011 through 2017. Pretty simple process, just takes a little time. To get to our first screw, it's going to be under this. We're going to just use a little plastic removal tool. We're going to come in on this side, and the reason we come in over here is all the clips are over here. So it pops up nice and easy, and it comes off. Once we get that off, underneath, we're going to see our first screw. And all of these Torx are going to be a T20 torque. So I'm going to come down here and remove that. Once I get that undone, we'll come back. All right, now once you've got that Torx loosened up, there's a series of clips that run along here and along here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here with another plastic tool, my other one, and we're going to come under this little spot. We're going to pry upward. And sorry for all the crunchiness. It's been a while since this thing's been taken apart, so I'm sure there's plenty of soda and coffee, etc. down in there. So once you get that open, this whole assembly, actually, I'm gonna have to put this down first here. Close this one, that way it's out of the way. Once you get that there, you're gonna be able to slide this whole assembly out. And you gotta be careful because there's some wires underneath. So we're going to disconnect those connectors. There's 3 of them. I may end up removing the ashtray because that connector might not come off very easily. All right, so brutal honesty here. These connectors on this side are very difficult to get out. I actually ended up removing these 2 Torx with a T20 torque and took this piece out and then took those connectors off while I had it out. Basically what you have to do is shove a flat implement in this side and pry up over a little barb that's on the connector. You do that on both sides. Just be real careful on this side, the smaller side, because this is a very thin piece of plastic. And if it breaks, you're not gonna have anything to anchor to. All right, the next order of business is to take this off. That comes off with 4 Torx on the corners. I've already pre-loosened those, so I'm gonna take all those off. And then what that's gonna give us access to is to the lower part. Again, underneath this, there's gonna be a connector, so be careful there. I'm just gonna take this off and try to just move it out of the way. Okay, next we're gonna try to get this strip out here. It's held on by 2 T20 Torx. One's up here and one is right down there. But before we do that, we have to remove the center felt console because it sits over it. And that is done by a single T20 torque that's over here. I've already got it loosened. So we're gonna take that out. And then in the back here, this little lip right here, I've already taken it out once. So you push these 2 little clips in so you can pull up the front. And then that back lip, it just pulls out from underneath the vents. Now this does have a bunch of wires underneath it. So we're just gonna set it aside for while we remove those 2 Torx. Okay, once we have those 2 Torx out, you get this out from underneath the felt and you pull up on it. There is some interference that happens right here, but it does eventually pass by, and then the whole thing just comes out like that. No clips, only those 2 screws. Okay, the next order is to take out these 4 Torx on the gear selector. In order to get this last one, there is this connector that is mounted here, and there's a little detent right there where I just pushed. When you push down on it, that connector will slide out of the way, giving you access to the last Torx. Once we've removed those Torx, we can pull this out. There is a connector on the back side. It's got 2 detents on the side, and you pull that out, and you can remove the wire and set that aside. Now, we're going after 5 more Torx, because ultimately we're trying to get to this Torx that's down here that connects to the center armrest. But in order to get there, we have to take out this center plastic piece. So there are 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And once you get those out, then there are some bolts that are down in these holes. You have to take those out as well. All right, now that we got the bolts out that are, by the way, 10 millimeter, that gives us enough access, enough wiggle room to move this center little thing out of the way and give us access to that last Torx. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove that one, then we're going to come over here on this side and we're going to remove this one. And I got to open this up and see if there's anything else underneath it. Once we have that Torx loose, you can use our handy dandy magnet, get down in here and grab that Torx. And then on the back here, there are 2 more Torx, as you can see on the top part of that. And then on the front, there's also this assembly that we need to take off to remount. And that is 1, 2, 3 Torx. Okay, so once you get those last 3 Torx out, you take this up, and there's 2 washers underneath. As you saw, one fell down and then the other one is right here. Okay, so one final Torx before we take this whole thing out. It's tucked back underneath here, and then just total clarity, I did end up having to move that out of the way. This is that mount that I slipped out just to be able to slide this whole thing out together. That was one unit. Okay, once you got that last Torx out from the inside, you're just going to turn this sideways. I didn't disconnect all those wires just because it's a lot easier just not to disconnect anything if you don't have to. So this whole center console ends up coming out, and voila, new one ready to go back in. Again, instead of disconnecting connectors in a lot of places, I ended up just removing the Torx and pulling pieces out instead of trying to get that connector undone. Same over here. I just think the risk of breaking a connector is much higher, and the pain that you're going to go through than taking out a few Torx to just remove a component to get it out of the way. All right, that's it. Put it all back together, just reverse the process, and you're good to go.